right. Okay, so welcome back to our discussion series in the Understanding and Exploring Network Epidemiology in the Time of Coronavirus online series. So I hope you guys all enjoyed that great tutorial from Laurent. And we want to continue in this discussion series, which for me is kind of the most exciting part of this. I mean, the tutorials and the seminars are going to be so informative, but in order for us to really make sense of that, it's great to get together and start talking. So that's the idea of this series. And this session is meant to orient you about what are our plans for how to break people into small groups, what are the goals of the small groups, etc. So before I begin, I want to say a little bit about the Combine program. That's Computation and Mathematics for Biological Networks. That's one of the co-sponsors. So when I thought of this series, I really initially thought, oh, well, the Combine fellows are all at home now as a program. I'd like us to stay connected. Let's start up maybe an online seminar series in network epidemiology just for the Combine fellows, be a way for us to stay together. And then I realized, well, since it's all online, we can make this a lot bigger. And there's a lot of people out there who want to learn about network epidemiology. You know, if they're like many of us thinking about, you know, the results, the news and numbers in the news and thinking about how they would model these systems. And so that's how this was born. And when we thought of that, we reached out to the Vermont Complex Systems Center because they have had a lot of expertise in organizing these workshops and series where people divide themselves up into small groups to really accomplish something amazing. So that's how this all got started. So I want to recognize especially the organizing team. Juniper Lovato is the program director of the Vermont Center for Complex Systems. And as I said before, she's a lot of experience in running workshops and conferences where we have a lot of small group activities. Daniel Serrano is a faculty specialist and research educator in the Combine program at UMD. Glynis Smith is our program facilitator for the Combine program. And we've also had so much insight and help from two of our Combine fellows who are helping with this organizing effort, Anshuman Swain and Nick Monona. So that's our organizing team. So also, in this session, let me remind you, we're going to run it the same way. We encourage you to ask questions in the chat window, especially at the end, but our facilitators will help bring these questions to me as I orient you through the process. So, since I'm leading this pitch right now, I want to tell you a little bit about my own career trajectory through interdisciplinary science, through network science, and also touching a little bit here and there in network epidemiology. So I grew up in northeastern Pennsylvania, Wilkes-Barre, Scranton area. I come from a working class background. I went to MIT as an undergraduate where I majored in physics and math. Already there, I was very interested in interdisciplinary science. My favorite course at MIT was called Chaos and Complexity. And so that course inspired me to apply to Cornell for an IGERT program they had in nonlinear dynamics. And Steve Strogatz, a prominent researcher in nonlinear dynamics, was my advisor. So I went to Cornell to work with Steve Strogatz, but I was in the physics PhD program. So while at Cornell, I started going to the Santa Fe Institute as a grad student. And in fact, that's where I started a collaboration with Mark Newman, who is one of the premier and founders of the field of network science. And so we started working together when I was a grad student. I go back and forth between the Santa Fe Institute and Cornell. I stayed on at the Santa Fe Institute as a postdoctoral fellow. I should say that while at Cornell, my first paper as a grad student was on network epidemiology. It was a collaboration with Steve Strogatz and Mark Newman. I think also the first of many papers they co-authored together. And it was called A Simple Model of Epidemics with Pathogen Mutation. So I started thinking about network epidemiology very early in my career. It's not my main focus now. I focus more on combining network science with machine learning. I do work on biological networks. I'm director now of the Combine program. So I mentioned my postdoc at the Santa Fe Institute. After that, I joined the faculty in the Department of Physics and the Institute for Physical Science and Technology at the University of Maryland. And more recently, I started this Combine program, which is an NSF research traineeship program that I've been mentioning, and it's focused on network biology. And so network epidemiology is included in that. A few other interesting affiliations along the way. I spent a year at the Institute for Advanced Study where, even though my background is in physics, I was in their social science division. I was an external fellow at the London Mathematical Laboratory. So that's a little bit of my trajectory where my main research has been in network science, and I've always had this interdisciplinary focus. So this next slide is all about what I kind of view as a possible formula for success. If I look back at my own research projects that have been most successful, the elements that those projects combine might be something like the following. A new perspective. So for me, I've actually had a lot of benefit coming to a field as an outsider. And obviously, just because you're an outsider, that doesn't mean you're going to make huge contributions to that field. You really need to be careful coming into a field as an outsider. But as an outsider, you might have a different perspective that people haven't been focused on in that area. And I think that can be very valuable. So you have this new perspective, but you need to have some relevant expertise to back it up. Something that you're bringing to contribute because you don't have the background in this specific field. And at least that's been important in my work because I usually am an outsider on the application areas that I'm interested in. And so what else do you need? Well, you need some insiders. You need this synergistic collaboration where you're bringing together people with different expertise. And it's the combination of all those that for me have led to new scientific insights and have been the most exciting. I should say that early in my career, I had this wrong notion that every project I was involved in had to clearly have my signature, have my stamp ingrained all over it. And that actually caused a number of limitations for me early on. And it was only much later that I realized my signature was there in numerous subtle ways, even if I wasn't the first author or the senior author. And I believe that your own scientific signature really comes out through your whole body of work, not just a specific project. So by working collaboratively and not trying to own a project, but by ceding some ownership and sharing that ownership, you're going to end up with a much better body of work and a much stronger overall research signature to your body of work. So it's within that spirit that I particularly want to encourage distributed ownership of all the work that you do in this series. So a little preview of what we're thinking of the schedule for this series. Today, we'll just have this introduction. I'm starting it off, and then it will be followed with Juniper, who's going to go through some of the Slack features. Next week, we'll have small group 1 minute, 1 slide video pitches. I'll talk more about those later. You'll submit them before our meeting and we'll run them and play them all together, talk about them in the chat window and have a discussion so we can all see what the other groups are doing. And then the third week, We'll have parallel sessions. So the small groups will do presentations, 10 minutes total, divided into 7 minutes of actual presentation and 3 minutes of discussion. And in the final session, there'll be optional follow-up small group presentations. Some of you I know are really keen to dive in very deeply into research projects and might want to go further. And some of you have a lot of time constraints, so you might want to just discuss things with people, put together some thoughts on paper in a presentation, but that's all the time you have right now. So we want to be flexible. This series is for people in both those groups. So I want to highlight the diversity of the participants that we have here in this Zoom room today. And not only are our participants diverse, but they're really impressive, bringing skills from a really wide range of fields. We have people from public health, we have card-carrying epidemiologists, we have people who are experts in network science, we have people who are experts in social science and in contact tracing. We have people who come from physics backgrounds and math backgrounds. We have people who are computer scientists whose focus is on informatics. We have people whose focus is on many other areas that are relevant to the study of network epidemiology. In addition, we have people from a very wide variety of career stages. So we have a lot of PhD students, we have master's students, we actually have a lot of faculty here, which is great. I think something like 20% of the people who applied to this program are faculty. We have postdocs, we have undergrads, you know, people from lots of different stages, as well as people from industry, people from government labs, and nonprofits. Geographic locations, we have people from all over the world. We're primarily, most of our participants are from the US across, you know, the different time zones, but a number of participants from Asia, from Europe, from the Pacific. And so we're really excited, also from the Americas outside of the US. So we're excited to bring all of you together here. All right, so in the spirit of what I was saying earlier about distributed ownership, I really want to emphasize that this series is an inclusive environment. I want to encourage you to be inclusive in group formation and discussion. I want to encourage you to respect the views and backgrounds of others. And a little reminder to faculty, I want to remind you that this discussion series is primarily designed for junior researchers. We would welcome your participation, but on an equal level, that we want this not to be run like a faculty members group meeting where they're in charge and they dictate the projects, but rather where people get together and come up with projects and directions and ideas together as equals. All right, for those of you who are participating in this full program, we wanted to acknowledge that. So we'll give you a certificate of completion at the end. Some of you are going to put a lot of hours into that. We want to recognize that. So to earn a certificate of completion, you have to do the following. We'll ask you to certify your attendance, which can be on YouTube if you're not available for some of the live sessions. So of all of the tutorials, seminars, and weekly discussion sessions. We ask that you participate, well, we require for the certificate that you participate in a small discussion group in between the weekly 2-hour sessions. So this should take a minimum of 6 hours total over the 4-week series. I know many of you, as I said, will be interested in much more in-depth investment than that. And as I said, this series is really designed for people on both ends of the spectrum. We're going to require you that you contribute to group presentations. So next week is the 1-minute, 1-slide video pitch, and then the 10-minute presentation in week 3, and in week 4, it's just an optional second 10-minute presentation. Let me tell you a little bit about these small groups that we envision. In the survey that you filled out when you applied to this program, we asked you what type of small group you might be interested in. And so small groups can either be reading groups or project groups. So if it's a reading group, the idea is that you pick a relevant paper, you get together as a small group, review it, and then present that paper in as a short summary to the whole audience so that they can get something out of that paper without delving as deeply into it as you did. Now, about, I think, 20% of participants indicated they were interested in reading groups. So most of the rest were interested in project groups. So we're dividing those into 3 types just to help guide group formation: data-driven project groups, model-driven project groups, and out-of-the-box groups that don't really fit into the other 2 categories. Now, the title really is about what's the overarching theme of that group. So you could be in a model-driven project and still have data involved in that project, which is great, which you want to match your model with data, but you come to this thinking about this from a modeling perspective. So the guidelines will be that we'll have 3 to 6 people per group. If groups get larger than 6, they should divide into smaller groups. And it's totally fine if 2 or more groups have a similar focus. Everyone should participate in at least 1, but no more than 2 groups. We don't want you to spread yourselves too thin. And we have 2 ways of forming groups, basically to accommodate people who want to be really invested and start research projects that they hope to continue afterwards, and people who want to get something out of this discussion series, but have more limited time available. All right, so option 1 is the one that we recommend, and that's that you self-organize into small groups by participating in the pitch channels on our Slack site. So Juniper is going to go over this after I finish this overview of the discussion series. So the pitch channels will be divided into those 4 different types of pitches that I mentioned on the previous slide: reading groups, data-driven project groups, model-driven, and out-of-the-box. And option 2 is if you want to participate in a group, but the self-organized formation process might be a little more than you were hoping for out of this series, you can just fill out a Google form, go.umd.edu/C19assign, and you just indicate the type of group you'd like, and we'll assign you to a group. So we'll put groups together based on people who just wanted to be assigned to a group. I should say that we will be posting these materials on the Slack site under the logistics channel. So the links are here, but you'll get them again later on. Okay, so those are our 2 ways of forming groups. Here's some important dates regarding the group formation. So these are really short-term upcoming dates. So by Saturday, this Saturday at 11:59 p.m., if you're doing the online small group formation in Slack, you should have joined 1 or 2 groups on Slack, or if you want to just be assigned to a group, you should have filled out this Google form by this time, Saturday, 4/11 at 11:59 p.m. And we want you to aim for your groups to be near final by this time. And then, because we expect there will be some adjustments, we have a short small group adjustment period between Saturday 4/11 at 11:59 and Monday 4/13 at 12 p.m. If needed, you can make some adjustments to your small group memberships. There's small group registration. So by Monday at 12 p.m., we need you to tell us what groups you're in if you've done this self-organization process. So that's another Google form, go.umd.edu/C19 groups to register your group. We'll create a channel for you on Slack, and you can organize on that channel. You can also schedule Zoom meetings with another, but you'll have your own channel for communications. And you can start working in your small groups, well before Monday at 12 p.m. But by Monday at 12 p.m., we want to know what your groups are. Okay. And then by Tuesday, 4:15, that is the wrong day. Tuesday, 4:14. So Tuesday, 4:14 at 5 p.m. I will fix that when we post this online. We want you to upload your 1 minute, 1 slide video. So we recommend you just do a screenshot with voiceover. We'll have some instructions for putting this together on Zoom. So more guidelines are going to be posted on our website, on the Slack space. So under the logistics. So 1 minute, 1 slide video. All right. Okay. So I'm just putting up again this discussion series schedule, and then I want to go and hear about, I'll take any questions about this process, but coming up next, Juniper is going to describe all the Slack details. All right, so let's take some questions. I'm going to stop sharing my screen so I can see the chat. Oh, how can you ask the tutorial in YouTube? We will, unfortunately, it gets recorded to the cloud. It takes about 24 hours to process that. It's a big video. We will post it tomorrow, and we'll send out a notification on the Slack site so that you know when it's available. So for model-driven groups, you're asking if you're going to try to design a model and do something, or is it expected to be a theoretical model? It can be whatever kind of model you want. You actually don't have to implement it. I mean, these groups can be of varying degrees. One could be a thought exercise about, given these models that we see in, that Laurent presented, what features might we like to add to them? So your discussion series could all be a model building exercise. For some others of you who say, no, I want to actually code this up and see how this works, I'll do an agent-based model. So it could be a theoretical model, it could be an agent-based model, and you can take it as far as you want. All right. If you sign up for a reading group but see a pitch in an interesting model group, will it be a problem if I join a model group? Oh, you mean if you indicated on the website what type of group you want, that you are not committed to at all. You can join whatever type of group you want. And someone was saying how they're looking for a specific type of expertise in a model. So if you pitch an idea, put that in. I'm looking for an expert in such and such. So on the pitches channel, Juniper will say a little bit more about that. All right. Could you please describe the required material in a supposed seminar? I'm not quite understanding the question. Is that for the small group presentations? Perhaps, well, I'll interpret it for that, like that, until somebody tells me otherwise. So the idea is for your small group presentations, these 10-minute presentations, we'll give you a basic outline of what you want to present, but basically you want to present the results of your discussion with your small group to the broader audience. And so you want to make it accessible to the broad audience. If you're doing a reading group, you want to summarize this paper, highlight some important contributions or potentially some interests, and or potentially some flaws in it or something like that. And so that's the main emphasis here. Okay, so I think I've answered a bunch of questions. Because we're getting late here, I want to turn it over to Juniper. But thank you all. I'm really excited about this. Again, I can't believe how the response we've gotten. Again, about expectations from reading versus model groups. Our expectations are very varied. We expect you to put at least 6 hours into your group outside of this and present what you were able to come up with in that 6 hours. So that's the expectation. We know that some modeling efforts just won't really take off. And tell us about that. Tell us, oh, we hypothesized there might be a difference if I added this feature to a model, but look, it didn't work at all. Or tell us about what you would like to do as a model. Give it more as a research project pitch. Even your full 10-minute presentation, tell us like, oh, this is the project we would like to investigate in this amount of time. We don't have time to. So our expectations are very relaxed. We just expect you to spend at least 6 hours on this outside of these weekly sessions. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Juniper.
All right, can everybody see my Slack screen? Maybe.
Yes.
Okay, yes. Okay, great. So I'm just going to quickly go over Slack. This is sort of going to be your home base outside of the discussion sections and the tutorials. If you've never used Slack before, it's pretty simple. It's just going to be a messaging space where we are going to have you pitch projects and to network with each other and really introduce yourself. And so this will be your home base. Where you can collaborate with one another. Last night, I sent you all invitations to the Slack working group space. And if you did not get that, please just send me an email. I posted my email address in the chat box, and I'll send you another invitation. And those of you who are really unfamiliar with Slack, we're going to go over some of the basics, but if you want to do a deeper dive, I would recommend going to the Slack Help Center's website, and they have a lot of really user-friendly tutorials about getting started on Slack and how to use it. And that's just slack.com/help. So it's a very easy website to find. Okay, so when you log into our Slack workspace, this is sort of what you'll see. The general is just sort of a welcome page for you all. And just so you know, kind of like the basic functionalities of Slack, what it does is allows you to write a post. So right here, I'm going to say, hello. So I'm writing a post right now. You can read posts, so you can see what other people posted in these channels. And you can reply to a post. So if I wanted to reply to a certain post and start a thread, I would click that little button there, and then I'd say, reply, if I can spell. So that's just a little test. And if I wanted to reply and mention somebody, say like, oh, I really want some help from Anjuman, then I would at him, help. And that'll send him a notification that I am mentioning or directing this message towards them. Okay. And if I wanted to have a private message, so say I didn't want to send this so that everybody can see the messages that I'm sending, I can go over here to these direct messages, and you can send this to one person or to a big group of people. This might be a good way for your team, once it's established, just to chat with each other before you publish things onto your channel where everybody can see it. So if you want to send a direct message, all you have to do is press direct message, type in the names of the people you want, and then you can start typing in your messages. So it's pretty simple. If you are looking for something, you can't find it, there's a nice search function. You can really search from different channels or from the entire Slack workspace. That's a helpful hint. One thing that I would encourage you all to do is, because we're not meeting in person and we're still trying to network and collaborate with each other, is to make sure that your profile, so here I'm going to view my profile. I put in a picture of myself and I set my title to my affiliation. So here I put the Vermont Complex Systems Center, UVM, and make sure that you have your name and if you feel comfortable, put your photo and your affiliation so that we all know who you are. Great. And I just want to reiterate, this is a collaborative space. We're all coming from all these different environments. I just want to remind you all to be kind and to respect all the different kinds of backgrounds that are happening here. This is meant to be collaborative and fun, so let's all be nice to each other. And if you have any concerns or questions throughout the workshop, please let any of the organizing team know. You can contact me through direct message, how I just showed you how to use it, or send us an email. So just let us know if anything is going wrong. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly introduce you to all of the channels. So the channels are over here. There are these little words with hashtags next to them. And I'm just going to go through each of the channels very quickly and tell you what they're intended for. So here we're at the logistics channel. So you'll see here, and this is where we're going to be posting all of the logistical information about the workshop. And this will mostly come from organizers, but you can ask questions about logistics to the organizers. We'll be posting reminders about deadlines and slides and different kinds of things like that. So check back here every once in a while to see if there are any updates about the schedule or anything like that. Okay, so my first assignment for you all, once you get into the Slack, and a lot of you have already done this, so I really appreciate it, is to introduce yourself. So go to this channel called Introductions and just tell us who you are. So a lot of people have already done this. It's awesome to see everybody's background and to learn a little bit about their research background, but also their personal lives a little bit, which has been really cool. So I encourage everybody to go in here and introduce yourself. It's a great way for us to sort of know who's in the space. Okay, so that being said, we also have a channel for after hours. So we have, you know, it's a little difficult to socialize sometimes virtually, but there actually are some really great ways. Recently, I've been having a lot of Zoom cocktail hours. I'll be hosting one for this workshop on Saturday, so feel free to join. But also plan your own activities like Netflix parties or VR meetups or whatever you can think of. So let's be creative with this virtual socialization and have fun with it. Okay, so we have a channel here that's called Reading. The reading is really just to suggest readings or papers that you find interesting or cool related to these topics, so you can post those kinds of things here. The channel Resources is meant for you to be able to share coding resources or discuss certain kinds of opportunities or other resources that you have, so use that channel for that. We also have a channel for data sets. So this is going to be really helpful for projects. If you have access to data sets or you're looking for a data set, post that in here in data sets. Yeah, okay, and then the channel tutorials. So this is a cool place. It's for you all to self-organize. This is sort of ad hoc after hours tutorials if you guys want to if you all want to organize them, if say you have some expertise in an area that everybody's been asking about and you want to run an informal tutorial, that you would plan this in this channel. Or if you are having a lot of help or a lot of issues with certain kind of technical problem and you want to post like, hey, does anybody have expertise in this area that could run a tutorial? That's where you would post this. Yeah, okay, so now to the very important part of the Slack workspace is pitching your projects. So we have 4 project pitch channels. So we've sort of divvied them up just to help you all see less and have to sort through things less if you want to. But please look through all of them and sort of see what example pitches or pitches have been put up there. So once you get to the pitch page, you can feel free to post your pitch. We have an example of some language just to help guide you along of what kind of things to say. The only rule for posting your pitches, or maybe there's two of them, is when you post your pitch, if you could put in parentheses at the end of it, either like how much time commitment you think the project will be. So you can put it as high, medium, or low. So just indicate if you think it's going to be a really intense project where people are going to be spending a lot of outside hours or not. Yeah, and then the only other rule, which I guess there are two rules, is that if you are interested in a pitch and you want to comment on it, please respond in a thread and not to the whole channel. So say I wanted to say, hey, I'm interested in this pitch here. Instead of typing it here in this main area, I would go to the thread and type my interest here. Yeah, and to indicate that you want to join a group, all you do is simply write in the thread saying like, I would like to join this group, but make sure that you have already committed in your mind to participating in that group, and keep in mind that you can only participate in up to two projects. Okay, so hopefully that was helpful. And if you have any questions about this, just write to us in Slack or in the logistics, and we'll be happy to help. All right, so yeah, over the next few days, keep an eye on these project pitch channels. That's where you're going to be talking to people and starting to form groups and brainstorm about ideas. So this is going to be a really important space for you all. So again, if you have not yet gotten into the Slack or you are having trouble with that, please reach out to us. And when you get in, please introduce yourself. It's good to know who's there. So yeah, so main thing is just check back at the logistics. We'll be posting announcements there. Introduce yourself and post your project pitches. That's open and ready for all of you to start collaborating and having fun. So yeah, thank you.
Thanks so much, Juniper. That was a great introduction. While you were speaking, I uploaded my slides from today in the logistics channel so that people could find the details there. I also am a Slack newbie. I've kind of been resistant to this, so it's actually been fun over the first couple of days learning how it all works, but a little overwhelming. But one thing that I found is if you have questions, there's a lot of Slack experts out there in this group who can tell you, oh, if you want to do this, go there. So just post somewhere that you think is appropriate if you have a question, and somebody will help you and help you figure out what you want to do. And that's what's been happening for me over the last few days. So don't feel too overwhelmed by this new platform, because you get used to it really quickly. And so with that, thank you so much for attending this. I'm really excited. I loved all the introductions I've been reading, also kind of halfway while talking. I have some introductions that are coming up on my phone in the Slack channel. So it's been great getting to know some of you, and I hope to get to know you much better. So that'll end our session. We're not too much over time for the whole day. Thank you so much. This is awesome. And I look forward to hearing about your projects and seeing your 1-minute videos for next week. All right, take care.